Dubs.
Hey now, I'm a rock star.
Oh, did you just smash mouth that shit?
Just smashed my own mouth. Yeah.
You all starred me.
Yep. Did it.
It's interview time, brother.
Oh, it's better than Smash Mouth. It's an interview.
It's better than smash, but not a lot is though. From the 90s. I was listening to the pop of the 90s, and man.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to beat.
All right. We got Adrian is here from Fight the Sun.
Hello. How are you?
You guys never opened for Smash Mouth, I hope.
No, it's a shame. Shame. It's definitely at the top of the list or close to the top of the list.
I actually, my friend Steve, he passed away, but he took me to a concert. It was one of those, I don't know if you remember back in the day, they had Marlboro Miles. And if you got it, clipped a bunch of pieces off of Marlboro cigarette packages, if you collect enough, and Adrian, it was a lot, then you could go to a concert for free.
Yeah.
And he's like, Dio, you want to go to Smash Mouth? And I'm like, for free? Oh, yeah. And the lead singer just got so shitbagged on Jägermeister. He just had a fifth of Jägermeister on stage, and he was hammering it. He couldn't even walk up the bus stairs. It was an absolute mess. I loved it.
Oh, God.
I loved every rock and roll minute of it, Adrian. Every rock and roll minute.
Oh, man.
So how's it going, brother?
Yeah, really good. Really good. Just that obviously for us, or for me, it's just a little after 7 a.m. So just sort of waking up, and so you'll have to forgive me if I'm a slow takeoff for me. I'll get there.
It's the artist's way.
I do have my coffee, so
you got your double, triple espresso. You had to throw it in there.
Pretty much, yeah.
It'll get you going. Coffee is rock and roll. It should be in there with sex, drugs, and coffee and rock and roll.
Yeah.
Who do you know that's in the music business that doesn't drink coffee?
I really can't think of anyone, and if they don't, then they should really reconsider their.
And if they, and even if they're doing drugs, they still drink coffee.
Mm-hmm. And what's that thing from what's that famous line from Spinal Tap at the end? If I get the sex and the drugs, I can do without the rock and roll, or something like that. Yeah. So this is the coffee. So for me, it's if I get the coffee, I can do without the rock and roll.
Seriously. So you got all right. We're gonna do a thing. Let me see. Do I want to talk about this first? Because I like to. My favorite track by you guys, and I wrote down because Carnival's the newest one, right?
That's correct. That's
okay.
Correct.
So we'll play that after the interview.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So and then because then we can talk about it if you want to. But my favorite, Goodbye Gravity.
Really?
I dig that one.
You're old school.
I do dig that one. Yeah, I went back into all of them. Now, Carnival, I liked the how you're doing the lyrics in that song a lot. The singing style is really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because if I played you the original version of that, it sounds a lot more like a really kind of more 70s, almost like a David Bowie type of song. And it's sort of that beat, that sort of glam rock, sort of, that sort of swing kind of thing, if you know the era of music at all. And yeah,
I do.
But that's how it ended up. Yeah, it's a lot sort of heavier and a lot quicker as well. It was a fair bit slower. It started off a fair bit slower. So, but yeah, I think that the way that the vocal delivery was just really kind of to match the I guess the vibe of the song. You know what I mean? Because like I said, it ended up being very different to what it was originally, the original concept, so to speak. So, but
I really dig it. Because I go through, you got to go through everything, right? Because I want to hear, because you guys have been doing music for a while. Like you got a lot of videos, a lot of content.
Yeah.
So I like to hear the whole progression of where, like how it, like you said, like you were just saying, there's some songs that have more of a 70s type groove. And then there's heavier ones. So it's great as a listener because you get the band, but you get different versions of the band.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, it's that classic thing that most people already talk about. It's just a mix of everything. We listen to just everything. Like you'd be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be surprised if we told you what we all listen to, and it's just trying to find a way of getting all those little pieces in there,
So let's do a thing right now. Speaking of that I love to do, because I know I have mine. First record you ever bought, complete record, first tape, and first CD
that I bought or
that you bought with your own,
with
with either your
my own
parents' money or your money. Like,
Okay.
You consciously were like, I got to get that E.T. song, because I did buy John Williams' E.T. song once. My first was Eye of the Tiger. That was the first record single. The first record, I don't even remember. What was mine? I'm trying to think to give you time. You got yours?
I think the first tape, I'm pretty certain, and I'm not just trying to, ramp up the rock and roll credibility here.
No, not at all. It's just what it is.
I'm pretty I could be wrong, but I'm 90% certain it was Let There Be Rock. AC/DC.
Oh, that's a good
It was my
one.
first tape. And I remember it was my mum. It was my mum bought it for me. We used to go shopping pretty certain it was every Saturday morning. I had to do the grocery shopping and whatever. And where we were, the mall that we were at, there was a music store there. And I walked in and I already liked AC/DC. I think it's un-Australian not to.
I think so, yeah.
They revoke your citizenship if you don't.
Well,
and yeah, I just remember seeing it. And see, the thing you got to remember though, the Australian version had a different cover. The original Australian version. I don't know if you've seen this.
no, I got to look it up.
Yeah. Google it. It's basically a picture of a guitar neck and hands. And it's like the hands are sort of blurry, like it's like a motion, like a, whatever you want to call it. My brain can't think of it in the morning, but it's the hands on a fretboard of a guitar. And I remember seeing the tape, and I'd heard AC/DC. I knew what they were about, but I hadn't heard everything. And I remember seeing the tape, and I went, "Wow, look at that! Look at that picture of the." Because I hadn't started playing guitar yet, I don't think, but I wanted to. So that was the first tape. First
Literally
CD,
my favorite rock band is
the
AC/DC.
same. 100%, yeah.
Just because people always talk about rock and roll, and I don't think there is a more pure rock and roll band in the history of rock and roll. AC/DC is it. If I had to tell aliens what rock and roll was, I'd give them AC/DC. It's bluesy and it punches you right squaw in the mush.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more.
Like I said to my friend, AC/DC sounds like the opening of a beer. Because they're just absolute rippers. I love them.
Yeah. No, it's just so ingrained, and I guess being Australian as well, it's just so ingrained in our culture. I'm trying to think of an American, an equivalent, and I don't know. It's probably like, maybe that's not exactly the same, but I was going to say like Bruce Springsteen or something. Like it's just part of the culture. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. He was, boy, when Springsteen was going, man, he was like, because that was all the 80s and everything with the Russia and the Cold War and Born in the USA. It was ridiculous. Rocky 3, come on. Outrageous. Or Rocky 4.
Yeah.
It was so America. It was, unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, look, he actually, he's more like, I don't know if you've ever heard of it as an Australian artist called Jimmy Barnes.
Yep.
He was in a band called Cold Chisel, and I think that's probably more our Springsteen, but not quite.
Yeah.
What he wrote about was probably a little bit more straight ahead rock and roll sort of stuff. Where obviously
our AC/DC would almost be more like one of the grunge bands. From the 90s, because everything from the 70s was so melodic and like groovy. There's no other way to describe it. And then the 90s was grunge, which AC/DC, not grungy sounding, but definitely grungy dudes. They got the vibe.
Okay, and you can't tell me that a lot of those bands, if you speak to the guys like Alice in Chains and all those sort of guys, it's one of their favorite bands as well. So
you could tell Man in a Box, just that riff, like that's like AC/DC style. We're gonna come, we're gonna pull up. We're going to be going 100. We're going to slam on the brakes. We're going to jump out, slap you in the face, get back in the car and take off. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's rock and roll.
It is.
Maybe they leave you a smoke. I don't know.
No.
Not. Probably not.
They leave a pack of smokes, and if it's Angus, it's a cup of tea.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
And he's still going.
I know.
All right, vinyl. What was your first vinyl? Do you remember? I think mine might have been David Lee Roth's album, Hot in the Sun or something. It really is. I'm not that proud of that one with California Girl and everything on
it. Yeah. I think I know the one. Geez, God, I should have come prepared for this.
It's not that easy.
No, it's not, because if I go have a look at all my vinyl, I've got everything. I've kept everything. I've lost a couple of things over the years, but for the most part, I've kept everything. And I'm pretty certain, I'm pretty certain it was an Iron Maiden record, and I'm pretty confident it's either Killers or Number of the Beast. I could have got them around about the same time. I could have even got them. Yeah. It's either one of those two, I'd have to say.
Those covers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, as a kid, I would have been, I don't know, 10 years old or 11, or whatever, something like that. It would have been pretty young. I didn't have the record player. My dad had the record player.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah, again, it's those covers. You just looked at them and you went, "Whoa, what's that?" Like
you drawn to them like a moth to a flame. Like, I mean, really, like I would just go straight back to the heavy metal section and start going through and having my mind blown by how they were incorporating like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff into it, almost fantasy elements.
Oh, that artwork. I remember, it would have been a little while later, but I remember getting the Somewhere in Time on vinyl as well. And that album cover, you could sit there for hours, like all the little things, like all the little references. I mean, the cover, obviously, but that cityscape, that futuristic cityscape, and it's got all the little Iron Maiden references in the back.
So cool.
I literally sit there and every time I pick it up, I'd see something new. I'm like, oh wow, look at that.
They probably love that. They probably would love. They're probably like, oh man, that's exactly what we wanted to do, because it was different when those albums came out. That's what you would do. You'd look at it while you were listening. I remember now they're actually releasing vinyl again, which is nice. Like bands are, vinyl, so at least kids might get to experience that.
Well, what's the statistic? Was it last year or the year before? Whatever. It was like obviously a recent year where they were saying that vinyl has outsold everything else.
Good.
And it's fantastic. And what people don't realize, this is only something I learned the other day, is I remember when I was a kid and it went from, there's that transition from vinyl to CD, and everyone's going, oh, CD's better, blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. But what they don't realize is, I remember all these kids at school, oh, why you still got, vinyl, and why aren't you buying CDs? Which I eventually did, like everyone else. But this is a music nerd fact, just for a second. Apparently in the late 70s, the quality of vinyl manufacturing just went through the floor. Like, it was just, I don't know, it was something to do with the shortage of the materials. And so a lot of the vinyl from that era, from the late 70s, early 80s, sounded worse than, the sound quality wasn't as good as it from earlier in the decade.
Sure.
And so by the time the CDs came along, people, let's put a CD on, put the vinyl on, and went, yeah, CDs sound better. Yeah. But it's but if you actually go back, if you find an older vinyl and still good condition from the mid 70s and earlier, the quality of audio quality is right up there. So there you go. There's your music nerd fact.
Love it, because most of the people who listen to the show are artists. The artists listen to the show. So all right. So what was the first CD you got when you had to break down and actually get one?
I'm looking over at my CDs as I'm.
I know you're gonna get. I'll say mine. Mine was Eddie Money's Greatest Hits.
Eddie Money. Okay.
That was the first one I ever got.
I think I know of Eddie Money, but he wasn't that big here. So
he was he was like a rock and roll crooner.
Yeah. Okay. I know the name, and I remember reading. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he passed away recently, didn't he? I remember reading something somewhere.
Yeah.
He did. Yeah. God, I want to say.
Now, I might be wrong on mine. I say that, but I remember I got it for Christmas one year, and I think there was a stack of them. So it's not like if you came back in a year, Adrian, and you were like, hey, remember what I said about that CD? That was bullshit. You can retract.
We could be here till mid.
You also prefaced it. You also prefaced it with the 7 a.m. and the cup of coffee. So you're all good.
Okay, that's my pass. That's my pass.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident again. Again, I'm going to go back to AC/DC. I'm pretty certain it was Highway to Hell.
Oh.
Pretty certain. It's either that or I think I might have bought a Guns N' Roses single. It's one or the other, and it would have been around the Use Your Illusion time. Yeah.
Could have been You Could Be Mine. I remember how huge that track was.
I think you could be right. I could be
because I bought that single. Yeah. I remember buying that because it just came out as this. Didn't it came out before Use Your Illusion 1 or 2? So you had a choice, and it came out with Terminator 2.
I'm pretty certain you're right. Yeah.
And it was a ripper. What a great track, man. The drums in that.
Yeah. It was Matt saw him. Everyone loves, I think, Steven Adler. More from a nostalgic perspective, I think. And don't get me wrong, Use Your Illusion. Appetite for Destruction.
Great.
It's just a masterpiece. We can't deny that. But that Sorum's great.
I think Highway to Hell is probably one of the top 5 greatest complete rock and roll albums.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely top to bottom. You can play it straight through.
Well, it's the holy trinity of rock, and it depends on which side of the fence you lean on, whether you're a Bond person or a Brian person. But it's either Let There Be Rock, Power Age, and Highway to Hell, the 3 in the row, or it's Power Age, Highway to Hell, and Back in Black. If you're sort of
because Back in Black is so kick-ass. It's so kick-ass, and Brian Johnson's amazing. But Bon Scott, I'm a short dude. Bon Scott, man, he looked like he just could eat nails and spit bullets, man. That motherfucker looked tough.
See, I could sort of pull out the bragging rights here and talk about my family connection to Bon Scott, but I don't know if I will. I don't want to be that person, you know what I mean? So
you absolutely can.
Well, when I say family connection, my dad's a bass player, and my dad's of a similar age to Bon. And before Bon joined AC/DC, he lived in Adelaide here in Australia. That's where I was born and where my family's from originally. And Bon, he was sort of between bands. I don't know how deep his story or not, but he'd left this band called Fraternity who had been in England and tried to make it. And he'd come back and he was sort of down in his luck working a day job. And occasionally he would do sessions for sort of, they were doing a session for, I think Dad said it was like some sort of shopping mall. It was like an opening or something like that. So they're making the ad for it, they're making the TV ad for it. And so they'd hired Bon. My dad was a bass player. Obviously, they had the band and hired Bon to come in and sing the vocal on it. So, and apparently he'd walked in and bottle of Jack in one hand, came in and walked up to the drummer on the session and gone, you don't know what you're doing, and like kicked him off the drum kit, and I'll play the drums on this. So he'd play the drums on, I don't ask me what the shopping centre was. I think it's long gone. I think it's been demolished since, but yeah, so he played the drums on the session and he did the vocals. And that was the first time I think it was the first time my dad had met him, but because Adelaide's a relatively small town, all the musicians know each other. And so he got to know him a little bit, and I wouldn't say they're best mates or anything like that, best friends, but yeah, that was his one sort of overriding memory of him sort of waltzing into the recording session. And
it's good to hear when they are when performers are what you think they are.
Yeah,
they just seemed like a rad dude. He had his booze. He's taking care of his business. You weren't good enough. Get out of the way. That's how the music sounded.
Yeah. I mean, and it could be a slight exaggeration. My dad is prone to that, but yeah, he said he was, not that they were the best friends or anything, but they were sort of acquaintances.
Right.
They were acquaintances, and he was a lovely guy. All the stories, all that part of the myth is
and a
is
hell
very
of a
true.
performer.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
really
yeah.
theatrical, like really
Yeah.
theatrical. He never gets credit at that because he passed away so long ago. But I mean, like he was
Yeah.
out there doing all the moves and everything, straight Jagger
Yeah.
moves.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, like it's just such a unique. It just had an aura. You know what I mean? Had
Yep.
an aura. Yeah.
So we're playing Carnival after the interview.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you
Okay.
want to
Cool.
tell us a story about Carnival? You don't have to. Do you have one? I mean, it's up to you.
Oh, yeah. I could tell you. I don't know if it's much of a story though. I mean, like I said, I touched on earlier on. Like it started off being very much more of a. It's almost had like a. I was really just mucking around. I had got some newer recording equipment, and I was just mucking around with sounds, and I had all these new drum sounds. So it started life as more of a very kind of glam rock, David Bowie era. Almost a little bit like, I don't want to mention this person's name because he's turned out to be a horrendous person since, but there was a very famous glam rock song, glitter rock song. That's all I'll say.
Yes.
I think you could,
Yeah.
Anyway, it sounded a bit like that. It sounded like that person's big hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it had that sort of sound to it, and I was just mucking around. I had like some keyboards on there and like these synth sounds, and I thought, and that's how it started. And so what we do when we write songs is we have a Dropbox folder and we just throw all these ideas in there, and I just threw it in there. I thought the guys aren't going to like this, but I was put it in there along with 50 other ideas, and it was like one of the. And then what we do, it sounds very nerdy and mathematic, but we get an Excel spreadsheet and then we write all the songs down and we rank them, out of 10, 8 out of
Sure.
10, 9 out of 10, all that sort of stuff. And we do that with our producer as well, the guy who produced it, John. The four of us get together and we do that. And that's how it kind. And they all came back. 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Nothing ever gets a 10 out of 10. And I'm like, really, that one? So anyway, we got into the rehearsal studio and ended up we sped up the tempo a little bit, and the lyrics. I'm very notorious, I guess. When I say notorious, I guess within the band. For waiting to the very last minute to finish lyrics and all that. I don't like doing that. It's the number one thing. I like making up melodies, but I hate lyrics. I hate doing lyrics. It's just when I say hate, it's just because what I'll do is
it's not as enjoyable as the other part.
It doesn't come as easy. It doesn't come as easy.
Ah.
And what I tend to do is I'll just write pages and pages of things that could potentially be lyrics, and then it's trying to trying to figure out what it is. So anyway, that's kind of the story. It's not, I guess, not that interesting, but it's started off life very differently. It became more of a sort of a lot heavier guitars. There's still a little bit of keyboards in the middle section there, like the little atmospheric sort of things, and it's funny. A couple of people have said recently it sounds a little bit like Muse. Which I found, it's like, okay, which I'm definitely a fan of, but not to the extent where it was obvious to.
Honestly, a bit maybe. I think it's heavier.
Yeah. They've got some pretty heavy guitars there, though, man.
But it seems like with Muse, it's like this is more. I don't know. Sometimes Muse has too much going on. I like them though, but sometimes this doesn't have too much going on. It's nice and clean, like.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. They put a lot of more electronic sort of stuff in there as well, and a lot of sort of atmospheric background, which is cool. But I understand what you mean.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, too, because I don't write music, so when I say stuff, sometimes it's purely from consumer / curator / whatever of music that I am. I like to. I just have a really good ear for music. I really have. I just always have. But like, that's so cool. That's why I like to say stuff like that. Like because your reaction is what's going to get the actual, like you're getting what I'm saying.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And then you're opening it like a coconut and having some delicious coconut milk. That's what it is. My metaphors are on point. Is that a metaphor? Great. I think it is.